team's ringing bells every Friday night. New logos coming in, numbers looking bright. But something's wrong with this picture we're painting. Revenue's flat.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, no matter where you are. Hopefully I hit the right greeting. I want to appreciate those that have joined us today live, also those that will be joining us watching the recording. We always start off with our weekly wisdom music, which is our song that we post each Sunday on the topic. For those of you that haven't seen that, it's typically a song. We have a different genre each week. This week we chose American country music, although we probably should have chosen something like British pop, considering who our guest is today. For those of you that don't know, I'm Dan Griffith, 15 years helping B2B SaaS and service firms accelerate their revenue growth. I'm an expert in go-to-market strategy, sales process design, and fractional leadership. A couple key roles: founder and principal consultant at Greater Gain Group, where we consult with health tech, fintech, insurtech, and banking tech companies, helping them build sales and marketing engines. I'm also the co-founder and revenue strategist at Grow Digital, where we help those same companies do the tactical marketing work to produce sales conversations. And then I'm a speaker, author, and podcast host with Grow with Dan, and I am available for keynote talks, panel discussions, podcasts, guest appearances. We'll give that to you later. But it's not about me today. I'm fortunate to be joined by Jason. We have actually never met in person. I would say we're LinkedIn friends. We've talked a number of times. But Jason's a recognized industry leader in customer success and technology services, and he's spent the last 30 years helping organizations across multiple industry sectors to be more customer-centric and achieve growth through customer-led principles. And he works at executive and board level positions in post-sales customer-focused roles, including with major brands like Sony and Reed Elsevier, and with niche technology startups. He's also the co-founder and co-host of the renowned customer-led growth podcast series called The Jason's Take On. So Jason, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much for having me. Really excited. I love the conversations we had previously. Really excited about what we're going to talk about today. So thank you, sir.
Yes, and we'll continue to play 20 questions. I think somebody told me that we should change the name of this to 20 questions, although I don't like that as much as seriously don't do that. But always like to start with kind of why now. 67% of SaaS companies report flat growth despite hitting sales targets. The post-sale gap is really killing compound growth. I like to call it putting water into a bucket with a hole in the bottom of it, right? Because you're pouring water in, but just as fast it's draining out if you don't retain your customers. And I actually will share in our article on Friday that I've led some teams that hit 110, 120, 130% of quota, but company growth crawled. And I said we celebrated new logos, but ignored the hole in the bucket. And so we're going to talk today about how we can stop ignoring that. And we'll start with the first question for Jason, which is, what's the biggest customer success mistake you see founders making in 2025?
It's a great starting question, that, Dan. And I think it's one that we still see, which is disappointing and somewhat surprising. Customer success isn't new. Your metaphor of the bucket with leaks in and holes in is exactly what we're trying to fix. How do we make the bucket bigger? How do we fill those gaps? And I think what a lot of organizations and founders, particularly newer ones, are seeing today is that customer success is still seen as something they can add on. It's reactive. It's not a proactive function. It sometimes even it's support. We're there only when things are broken. What we need to do is think of it as a commercial engine. It's a growth engine. How do we make sure our customers stay with us, they grow with us, and are there for the whole journey? And customer success needs to be part of your go-to-market journey, your go-to-market actions and architecture from day one. It needs to be part of onboarding. You drive adoption, and it creates expansion opportunities. I think the challenge you've got is when it's added too late, when the right investments are not made, and you're under investing in people, in technology, and not just people in numbers, but the right experience, the right leadership. You lose sometimes months, if not years, of growth and expansion opportunities. And really, the earlier you can bring customer success in to your customer journey and do it right strategically, the faster you start compounding that growth and value that you're driving to your customers.
Yeah, and I think you used the term when we kind of talked before about it just being integral to the DNA of the company, right?
Absolutely, and it's not. I think it started off as a function, but for me, it's not. It's far more than that. Everyone understands sales, everyone understands marketing. I think customer success can be misunderstood sometimes, but it's not a team. It's a way of working. How do we as a business, how does everybody ensure? As I said, in the intro for me, I'm here to help organizations be more customer centric. How do you make sure every group, every individual in your company is thinking about the value we're providing customers, and join up, think as one group, one organization under that same ethos? How do we grow and retain our customers?
Absolutely. So everybody's talking about AI. I almost was going to advertise us as being the AI free podcast. No, I was joking with that because we use it integrally. But as I think about how AI has changed every part of a business, it's certainly changed customer success. And in your mind, what has, how has it changed customer success in the past, say, 12 to 18 months?
I think for me, it's completely flipped the model for what we're doing. It's no longer wait and see. It's now spot, look at insight and act on that. And it's a lot easier to do it with the right tools and right data. It's been, if you look, 12, 18 months doesn't seem like a long time. Somehow it's August already. August last year doesn't seem that long ago, but the changes that we're seeing in the pace of evolution in AI, you look at the likes of ChatGPT, they've just released ChatGPT 5 last week. It's a huge improvement, but these are technological leaps that we're seeing in AI that we've just not seen this pace of change before. And I think now what we've got to do and are doing with customer success is really using AI. I've always said it's technology's been an enabler for us. So for me, this is a part of that evolution. It's just expanded it and doing it faster. So with AI, with the right tools, we can analyze customer data, customer signals, we could usage, sentiment, engagement, and we can do it in real time. We can flag risk on accounts much earlier. We can flag opportunities much earlier. And one of the big things, and I think you see this day to day, just for me, I'm sure for you as well, Dan, but it frees us and our teams from more repetitive admin tasks, core notes, analytics from core notes, an idea of sentiment, looking at health score updates, health score algorithms, and even drafting communications and follow-up emails. And that time we're saving can be reinvested into what humans will always do best. It's relationships that add and drive value for customers. And I think the big shift isn't just speed, it's about scale. What we can now do a lot more is we can deliver value-driven, personalized engagement to more customers without burning out our teams and without needing to add more and more people on. So the change has been huge. And I think the biggest challenge for us is this change is going to grow and grow and get even bigger, but it's exciting at the same time.
Yeah, it really is. I was literally just listening to a podcast talking exactly what you're talking about is, the productivity gains that we can get. So, why don't you walk us through kind of an example of where AI has transformed some post-sale results? You gave us some examples earlier, but is there maybe a specific one you'd like to point out?
I can, and this, it's a challenging question to give something that's very recent because the change is so quick. I'm going back a little bit, but it's still very relevant and shows the application of AI transformed results here. So a number of years ago, was working for I say a number of years, kind of 1 to 2 years, was working for a SaaS company, and we were recording and running sentiment analysis and customer calls and using technology and AI to start doing that. And we started to see repeated frustrations about specific workflows and how product functions were working. That then insight was resolved and addressed very rapidly in a very short time frame. And then the customer success teams could use that same tool to track sentiment about the change. So we've not only made a change, we've listened to feedback, made a change based on that, and we can now see how quickly and how well that change is responding, or the customers are responding to that change. And that's what we can do. So you can make rapid changes based on real feedback and hear what people are using and doing with it so quickly. And I think that's a really, really good example. Like I say, it's a year or so ago, but really relevant. And I think you're seeing that time scale shrink so much now.
Yeah, being able to respond to conditions, and especially if you've got a larger enterprise,
Absolutely.
being able to make almost real time market adjustments. So I think I face this one about every day in working with our clients, but I want to hear your perspective on it. And I know we talked some about this in the past. What's the difference between AI for sales versus AI for customer success?
I think I was thinking about this as you proposed the question, and actually I think that difference is reducing. Customer success is a commercial function, and I think that understanding of it as a growth engine for the business, part of our go-to-market strategy, is becoming more and more widespread. And it is a sales function. We are upselling, we're selling growth, expansion, new opportunities to our customers with slightly different methodologies and approaches, but lots of the metrics and guides we use and approaches and use of AI will be similar-ish, but there are still some differences. So I think in sales, there's a lot of focus still on winning those deals. How do we close a deal? Predicting what those close rates will be, optimizing pricing, finding the right customers. As I said, a lot of those are still super relevant. How do I make sure I close an upsell? How do I price it properly? How do I know I'm upselling to the right customers? But there are, as I said, there are differences. And I think customer success today, what AI is more focused on is how we keep and grow those customers. So predicting churn risk, renewal risk, identifying growth opportunities for how they're using our services, our platforms, and then value moments or expansion moments. How can we see when things are shifting? When do we need to engage with the customers and really bring the human in? So that's being really far more driven by technology and ultimately increasing adoption. The data sets are different. We're looking more at usage of existing tools. The KPIs can be different. And the tone of engagement, I think, is still different. One is about the promise you make in the sale, but the other is about the value you deliver and how you continue to deliver it and grow that value. So I think that, as I said, there are still differences, but I think they're coming closer together.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost a little bit of a trick question, right? Because I think they're very tightly integrated, right?
Yep,
And
that's why I have to reread the question.
yeah, no, but I think I think you did a great job of kind of differentiating those. So I always like to put kind of key takeaways in here. And I think we talked about this early on, but I think that in a lot of organizations, whether they're early stage, growth stage, or even mature, customer success is almost seen as a expense, as a necessary evil, as something, like support that you have to have. But I think we would both agree it's really your growth engine, right? Because especially like a lot of my clients are platform sales. Well, platform sales customer success is critical, right? Because a lot of times the strategy is a land and expand type strategy, and it's a Fortune 500 type strategy. So so again, I think this is would you want to comment on that, or should we move on? Because I think
what I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. It is the growth engine, but one word I'd add in there is it's your compounding growth engine.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The more of the investment you make in, you can get a much better return on that investment as you're refining it, doing it properly. For every upsell, referral, renewal, that's fuel for how we grow. So it's a compounding effect.
Right. No, that's a great point. I mean, even if you look at the numbers and your CAC and your everything else, it's compounding growth. Good. Well, we'll change that in the slide for when we put that out. So how this is an interesting one because I think we face it a lot in talking with founders around, they've got some sales or they've had some initial success, and then they go, okay, well, I want to scale, but I'm already getting a lot of people coming in, and we go, what's going to happen when you hit that bubble, right? Where you and I think there's some analogies to customer service, but how do you convince a founder to invest in CS when sales is kind of cooking along and doing well?
I'd go back, how you started this conversation, Dan. You've got a bucket. The bucket has holes in. So no matter how much you fill it up, it's still coming out.
Yeah.
And if you're not filling those holes, stopping those holes occurring, you're never going to grow that size of the bucket. If your sales team is closing, it's in the numbers here. I think if your sales team's closing $1 million a quarter, but you're losing 20% of those customers every year,
right,
constantly in catch-up mode. So you've got to look at prospects, pipeline from prospects, but pipeline from existing customers, and to constantly be in catch-up for anybody, but particularly with founders that are trying to grow their business. It's exhausting and it's expensive. And I think when you bring in customer success and do it right, it changes the maths and it protects what you've already sold, what you've invested in. It increases the lifetime value, and it generates expansion revenue at a fraction of the cost. As you said, talk about CAC. It's a fraction of that cost. And I think it's not either or. And I think we are seeing a shift. So I don't think a founder would say, I've done sales, I don't need CS. But the key is, how do you make them grow sustainably together?
Right. No, it's a great point, and I think a lot of founders are torn there, and because it's and honestly, when they have pressure from external investment, I think it's even worse, because a lot of that pressure from external investment is on net new.
Yep.
Right. I mean, in my career selling, I've been in several SaaS organizations where you don't even get compensated for a renewal. It's all net new, right? And so where do people focus, right? And it's we could probably do another one on badly written compensation plans.
I like to think that shift, that kind of drive is shifting. But you're right, it's still there. The focus is on net new. How do we shift it?
And I think about this as an example of we had a client that was a lower volume SaaS client. They had about 700 customers, but they could never get over. They'd grown great. They had grown from annually from about 150 to about 350, and then they got to 600, and then they hit 700, and they just kind of tapped out. And that's when they came to us and they were like, "Wow, we can't break through here." And when I looked at it, it was literally the leaky bucket, because they weren't doing anything to keep the people in, and there was some procedural things they had to fix. But they'd add 60 and they'd lose 40, and then the next month they'd lose 60 and add. So they could never keep bumping up. But when we did those things, it was amazing. They went from 700 to 1,000 in like 3 months, which was But it was I guess that's why we get paid to do what we do, because I looked at it, I was like, oh man, this is a no-brainer. But most people, they just don't think about that, and hopefully this will help some founders to think about that. So
just one thing I'd add there, Dave. I think you're absolutely right. And a lot of these changes that you can make aren't too difficult. They aren't too complex.
No.
And that's the key thing from this.
No, I think we kind of our mantra across our companies is, we want to teach people and help people learn how to do something. And if they'll take that and they'll do it, it's fine. But a lot of people go, I don't have the time or the discipline to do that. And so that's where we make our money, right? Because we come in and help them do that. So which AI tools? This is probably okay. Well, we'll say this is a podcast in and of itself. But what? Maybe I'm going to change this a little bit. What? Can you maybe give me an example of an AI tool that a company should start with for customer success? Something that's maybe just a simple type thing.
Yeah, I think that the risk here is that people think AI is going to fix the problem, and they go for an LLM. and they're,
Right.
they're the obvious ones out there that we all use at home or
Right.
we're starting
Right.
to. That's not the answer, though. What you want to do is build AI into your technology stack, your workflow.
Yep.
And so what you need to do is use AI that's embedded into a lot of these. And for me, it's keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. And there are lots of different options. But for me, there are three foundational building blocks here. You need a CRM or customer success platform that has AI summarization, AI call taking, note sentiment built into it. And that's very common. There are many out there. I'm not going to name any favorites. There are lots. And what you want is that every customer conversation is then captured, notes and details taken from it, and it's actionable. So that's number one. I think the second thing is then AI-driven product analytics that can look at adoption tracking. How well is our product, our features being used? Who's using it? How are they using it? What's not working? Right? And again, there's lots of different models out there, but that's another fundamental. And the last one is it's a basic churn prediction model. Now you can build your own simple algorithms, but again, there are tools out there that allow you to do it, to flag those accounts that need attention. And I think if you bring those foundations together, so that platform with all of your customer data and that analysis from an AI point of view to summarize a customer, looking at how customers are using your products, and then based on that data, AI to then say, where are the risks here? What's happening? Is the churn here? How do I change it? They're the fundamentals. Now, as I said, large language models are becoming ubiquitous now,
Right.
and they help massively with a lot of the admin that we talked about earlier on. Just understanding your tone, your voice, how you speak, and you can automate a lot of things. So I'd also add in a relevant large language model, and they're built into a lot of the enterprise applications, product suites that are out there today, but make use of it. A lot of organizations are steering away from because they're not scared, but they don't know how to embrace it yet. So I'd at least find people in your organization that want to start showcasing AI and what it can do. And I think very quickly you'll build a center of excellence around that and see that then expand beyond customer success.
So to rephrase, CRM, usage, churn prediction, and then LLM. Those are kind of the four areas. Okay.
Yeah. And quite often you can get those all as part of one package, but they're the foundational parts that you need to it.
Yeah. Just make sure that you check out and understand what you're getting. I feel like everything these days, like I go buy a box of cereal and it has AI inside, right? I mean, it's and if you've been to any conferences lately, I mean, it was funny. I was at a conference it was probably 6 months ago, and there was a company that said no AI here, and like their booth was flooded, right? Because they were the only one that was different, right, than everybody else. But yeah, I think checking to make sure you well, and that's probably a good lead into the next question. So I'm gonna this is probably not a totally fair question, but I think I think the answer is it depends, right? It's a consultant's answer. But maybe let me rephrase it a little bit and just say, how do you know you're having success when you're using AI with retention and expansion? I mean, what kind of indicators do you see?
I think just going back to the last question as well, I mean, what the trick is to make your data work better for you rather than adding more complexity on. And like you said, every single tool without doubt has AI, and you can imagine the challenge for our IT departments. How do you integrate? And which ones do you look at your corporate data? And then when you look at the investment we're making into AI, how do we see the value of it? So you've got to have some control on it, but you still want to experiment. But I think you've got to look at the impact. You've got to measure it like any investment. So what was retention expansion like without AI? And then give yourself a time window, set a baseline for renewal rates, set a baseline for expansion revenue, net revenue retention, time to value, net promoter score, and delivery on customer value. Set your baseline for those, introduce your new tools, your new AI tools, track those changes. I mean, this is almost it's a transformation project or program that you're running. You need to run it like one. This is where we start. This is where we finished over a certain time window. I was going to say 3 to 6 months, but the pace of change, that feels too long. Yeah. Weeks or a month or two. But what AI should be helping you do is make your decisions earlier, smarter, and you should see that showing up in faster and better adoption, higher engagement, more sentiment, positive sentiment from customers, and more growth opportunities on existing accounts. And you can measure all those. So that measurement, that actual measurement of it is fundamental. How do you look at your metrics now, look at them after? But my worry is the time window. It's changing so fast that we're not going to give this 2 years. Even a year seems too much. And how do we keep pace with those changes that are coming as part of that as well?
Yeah, and I wonder too if productivity, right? I mean, looking at productivity, which again that's sometimes can be a difficult measure, but I tend to think really across the entire organization. I mean, I really think more about sales, marketing, customer success, product. You're going to be able to do more with less people, right? Or you should be able to. And I think, as we think about and prepare for those, new positions, I think it's all about, just being more productive. I know for me, for what I do with my businesses, I could say I'm as much as 60% more productive with using AI. But, you've got to invest, like everything, you got to invest some time into it too. So it's not just something that just shows up. So what's the biggest AI customer success win you've seen recently?
Well, you've spoke this from already, because it's productivity. It's the product without a shadow of a doubt. And it's not a single win. AI is transforming today how customer success teams work day to day. I've seen teams save hours every week through automated call summaries, sentiment on calls, calls to actions from calls, instant or quicker health score updates, AI-driven insight dashboards and reports. It's making today much better use of the data we already have, spotting patterns we'd otherwise miss, and really providing those practical recommendations today as to what to do next. So what it means is we're spending more time with customers, faster problem solving, more consistent delivery across the board. And we're not, to your point earlier on, we're not adding many more people. So that productivity gain is there today if you're using AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you get, and this is like totally non-AI related, but I think I see this as something across a lot of customers. How do you get actual product users involved in customer success calls?
You've got to think of your customers as there are many types of customer for every customer I'm working with. There's individual personas, there's the buyers, there's the power users, there's the admins, there's the product users, there's all these different teams. And I think what you've got to do, it's not about renewal discussions, it's not about check-ins, it's not about updates. It's about how are we making your life easier? How are we adding value to you? It's not just what's our product doing, but how is our product and service helping you in your day-to-day activities and helping you achieve your goals? And I'd invite customers in actual calls with my product teams to discuss roadmap. What are they looking for? What are they working on? Share feedback from the customers directly with my product managers, give them early access to features and new tools and new services. And so give them a real, if they engage with us, show them a real benefit from that, whether it's solving their biggest pain point and challenge, to giving them insider information about what else we can do and where they can't get anything else from anyone else. So it is that engagement. And I think when you engage these users the right way, they want to help. People want to be asked, what do you think about this? How are we doing this? It's a really, and when they can see value from it and see the impact it's making, it's a really positive discussion. And the flip side is making sure that it's not just customer success talking to these users, bring them in, have a weekly cadence where you've got a product team, customer success, and even sales Yes, you've got internal teams, wins, losses, how do things work, but bring customers in, start talking about how they're using it, how it's helping them. It really kind of brings to real life the product and what people are doing with it. So I think there's a lot you can do here, and users are really wanting to help do this. The challenge you've got is every customer today probably has 10, 20, 30 different technology tools.
Right.
Every customer has customer success organizations trying to have these same conversations with them. So you've got to be respectful of their time. But this is why for me, with AI enables us to bring the human in at the relevant point where value is added to the customer. And that's the game changer.
I think the main thing, so all that was awesome. And I think when we do the shorts of this episode, that will be one of them, because I do hear this problem a lot. But the one thing that I heard you say is bring value, right? You've got to bring value to their daily lives, making their life easier, making them feel part of it. And I think, just doing a quarterly check-in, or, that is, like you said, because there's 10 other people lined up, trying to check off the boxes in their CRM that they talked with, XYZ customers. So, that's really good stuff. So what's maybe the first thing that founders should do when customers are renewing but not expanding?
So
And let me just preface this to say, to me, if I see that renewal revenue is either flatlined or going down, and they're not expanding, to me that automatically tells me that we're not bringing the value, right? Like you just said before.
You're taking the words out of my mouth, Dan. That's exactly. So for me, it's a flag. It's a yellow flag,
Right.
and it means that they're not seeing the value that they need and want,
Right.
and that's critical. And I think what you've got to do then is at the right level, and it can be a senior level sometimes, is dig deep into what their goals are, not just the goals from our product, but what are their company goals? What are they trying to do? And what are their expected outcomes, and how are we playing a part in making that better for them? And run a session focused on future needs, not just performance. An expansion, I think, can happen when you start introducing new ways to help them hit where they're going next. But it has to be, like you said, it's about value. It means they're not getting the value. And it's almost like and something like this is easy to spot. With AI, you can spot this instantaneously. So you can have these very proactive conversations.
That's great. A great point. So, and again, I'm just putting this in there. Renewal without expansion signals hidden churn risk. So, I think we probably beat that one to death. And I think you really just talked about this one, about how to use AI to spot at-risk accounts before champions leave, because that's, but please go ahead.
It's all of that. It's, when do the customers show up? Are we having too many meetings with them? Are we adding value? How often are they interacting with communications from us? Are they using the product? And this goes to the product users. Right. And AI can absolutely help spot when we're seeing that first signs of disengagement.
Right.
That disengagement, as we said to the last point, can be those very early indicators of a potential exit that's coming up. And if you can act before that happens, you can start building new champions within an organization, in your customer, and help avoid that surprise churn that happens when a contract owner turns up and says, nope, we don't want it.
I feel like you always have to be like building that community there.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it's just, you can't, after run renewal, you keep building that. It's got to be an ongoing kind of bringing value. So do you have a playbook that you use for turning customer calls into case studies?
I think one of the key things here, and there's a nuance to this. Now, it's recording customer calls. So you've got to get permission to do that. It's becoming a default, but you still need to ask all sorts of kind of data privacy things. But excuse me. But what you can then do is run those transcripts through AI, find those success moments where they describe a win. You can tag those. What are the follow-ups? You can follow up with the customers. You can automate those follow-ups and shape that into a short story, not a case study, not a huge white paper, but short stories.
Right.
With a clear before, after, with numbers. Publish it quickly, get it out there, showcase the customer while the results still fresh and their enthusiasm's high for what you do. I think that's fundamental.
Those don't even have to be external, right? You can do those. I mean, because I think a lot of organizations don't even know how their customers using the platform, right? There's, and I think just publishing those internally so people know, oh, well, this is how they're using it, or that's how they're using it. Yeah, we've done some stuff with like Claude, writing. It'll do follow up. We've done some stuff with chat. Of course, I've been messing around a little bit with Gemini's new story feature, which is a lot of fun. If you've got a call transcript, I've had a good amount of success putting it in there. Now, it does hallucinate sometimes, so you have to double check, that it doesn't add something that's out of the ordinary. But yes, it's in sales stories, sell, right? And I think that's important. So how about personalized follow-up? We talked a little bit about that, but how do you scale that across an organization?
I think what you've got, again, you hit on some key points there. You've got to use these tools to help you quickly generate the relevant follow-up based on what's been said, based on the analytics from what's been said, those calls that provides the key points, recommendations, easy wins for the customer, and you can use AI to draft those follow-up emails. To your last point, though, what we've still got to do is check for those hallucinations. It's not 100% accurate, and that there are silly mistakes it can make. So you've still got to check that. That over time will get better. So there'll come a point when it is accurate and it speaks in your tone. But we can get to a point where AI has done a massive portion of the work for us, and it means we can deliver thoughtful, relevant follow-up for lots of customers for the same time it took to do one or two before.
Yeah, and I just, to me, somebody asked me the other day, what's the biggest change that AI has made in your business or with your clients? And I said it's follow-up, because there's no longer an excuse to wait 3 weeks or whatever. I mean, you if you have the discipline to do it, you can do all of your follow. Even if you have a day full of meetings, you spend 15 minutes in the morning and all of that's done. And that's and I think talking about value, making sure that your customers understand that they've been heard, right, when you meet with them, which I think sometimes is that gets skipped over. So what customer success AI trends should founders watch for in, we'll say, Q3, Q4, 2025, and maybe going into 2026?
I think this kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier on. I mean, AI is everywhere in every tool you've got. So you've just got to be conscious of it popping up. Make sure you're looking at what's relevant for you. Don't go with everything, but you've got to have a level of experimentation. So you've got to, I think one of the big trends is change. How do you keep up with this? So you've got to have some level of innovation and time allocation for that. I think for customer success specifically, it's that real-time, multi-source health scoring, usage analytics. You've got tools that bring together how people are using it, what the sentiment is, the different risk points, including financial risk, external factors coming in. I can quite easily bring in external information from external markets and about my customers, and industry news to give me kind of live updates as to what's going on customer health. And I think the AI, it's no longer now just displaying that, it's making recommendations as to what to do. So it's that shift to agents and how they're all being come of those same models where we can not only get the answers to what we want, but AI can start making those changes for us, can interact with other systems, that integration's there. So I think it's the pace of change and just how does it fit into my model. Right. But start using it to make that better use of your data, and start small if you've not started already. But you can't ignore this.
Yeah, that's really good advice, is just to get started. And hey, it may be from a news source is listen to the Jason's Take On podcast, right? I mean, if you really want to hear about this all the time, they're the ones to talk to. So, and another key takeaway: pattern recognition beats gut instinct for predicting churn. I just, you mentioned that, I wanted to call that out though, because there's, any software is built on a database, and boy, you can really get down to seeing the things that indicate churn. Because before it was just gut, you would say, oh gosh, I'm not so sure these guys are going to renew, right? And if you've been doing it for a while, you can be close, but then hopefully that's normally 3 months before it happens. If you can go 9 months before, then there's something you can do about it, right?
Absolutely.
But if it's 3 months before, it's difficult. So we brought this up earlier. I think it's something that's at least worth mentioning. How do you handle customer privacy, data privacy with AI tools? And I'll say broadly, whether that's recording call transcripts or even using AI with customer data.
I think one key thing is transparency. As I said, starting with, if you're recording calls, you've got to tell customers, you've got to tell them how you're using their data. And if you're interacting, if AI is being used, it has to be part of your terms, your conditions, but make it upfront. I think you've also got to look at anonymization of that data. Make sure you're anonymizing what you need to anonymize, and you're working with tools that meet your compliance needs and requirements. There are standards out there. We've got GDPR, SOC 2, there's ISO 20001, there's many others coming out. But you want your customers to ultimately feel safer, to feel more valued themselves, that you're using AI, not more exposed. And I think that's critical. And that's where we are now, is a lot of organizations are worried about that.
Yeah, I think transparency is really, it's key on a lot of things, but it's just being transparent on how and when you're using it is important. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, about what's the ROI timeline for AI-powered success. I think one thing we would definitely agree on is it's coming down, right? The expectations, you had said 3 to 6 months, now it's 3 to 6 weeks. But what do you want to comment any further on this topic?
I think there's two things. If you're looking at the productivity changes around admin, you can see a timeline that is weeks. Weeks is probably pushing it. Even days. You can see if you use it right. So on the productivity admin side of it, you can see a very quick ROI, weeks. When you're looking at retention, value, growth, as we said, that timeline's coming down. So what might have been a couple of quarters might now be months, but the key is to track it. How are you making those changes, those benefits? As I said earlier on, have a baseline, look at that improvement, manage that improvement, and just so you can show that clear ROI, and you will see one.
I think the other thing that I'd mentioned, and we talked about it earlier, but maybe just reiterating here, is that it does involve an investment, right? It's not just that you pop into ChatGPT and you have a conversation and all of your AI woes are handled. You've got to be able to understand your problem, define your problem, write good prompts, spend some time getting trained. I do at least an hour of AI training each week, just to learn about something new, because I'm old and it takes me a little longer to figure these things out. Or I just ask my kids, right? And they tell me, hey, Dad, this is the way you do it.
Thing, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then I feel like my dad. But yeah, I think realizing that you have to invest there, it does involve an investment.
Yep.
But I think we would all agree that when you make that investment, your turnaround is fairly quick. Yep. So I think I know what you're going to say here, because you said it earlier, but I'm going to give you a chance to say it again because I think it's important. So what's your 30-day quick win for founders starting AI customer success?
I think talk to your team. The thing about your kids, your team, I'm sure, are using AI outside of work. They've got ideas. Have those conversations about what could we do with AI. I think that's a starting. What else could we do? Understand what your problems are. But I think start an easy win with that transparency. Record customer engagement, customer conversations, and do the analysis on that, whether it's calls, meetings, webinars. Run them through an AI summarizer, capture those insights, the action points. And I think within 30 days, you'd see common issues, common challenges, feature requests. We talked about data sets. There's one data set that we've not mentioned is support.
Right.
all those support calls coming in that, yes,
Right.
might be reactive, but why are people phoning in? And I think you can do a lot of this without changing existing process and utilizing this knowledge correctly. There's immediate value from that.
Yeah. Now, there was one word that I heard you say, I think maybe 6 times in the response. You said start. And I think, to me, that's the important thing, right? Start. It doesn't have to be perfect. I was telling somebody the other day, when we started doing this weekly live, committed to doing a weekly live event this year, every week, and didn't get started till March. And when we first started, it was absolutely horrible. The sound didn't work the first week, but we started, right? And some people may still say it's absolutely horrible, but we did start. And I think that's the important thing is, start.
Yep.
And like you said, that the recording of the customer calls, the customer transcripts, that's the quickest and easiest way to do it. Of course, you want to make sure you're getting permission.
Yep.
Well, we actually have a free download that we're going to give to folks who requested, and it's called our AI Follow-Up System for Customer Success Guide. It's a way to turn call transcripts into case studies, notes, and emails. And in that, we actually share how to build either a custom GPT or a Claude prompt that will allow you to do that. We've done that internally for some of our customers. And we walk you through step by step on how to do that. So if you're watching and you want to have that, just comment on whatever platform you're watching us on, and we will get that to you. So always are open to questions. So just wanted to kind of seed some of those questions here. So share with us, what's your biggest customer success challenge? How are you currently using AI, and what stops you from recording customer calls? Please share those questions and comments. We will respond. I will reach out to Jason, and he can respond if you want an expert on it. And I would also encourage you to reach out to Jason. He's on LinkedIn. Jason, is LinkedIn the best way to get a hold of you?
I absolutely, Dan. Please, anyone who wants to connect with me, the real takeaway here, as you said, AI in customer success. It's about acting earlier. How do we do this? And there's a lot going on. So please, I'd love to help people make this change. I'd love to connect and help kind of have those conversations. So so
definitely reach out to Jason on LinkedIn. If you can't find him, reach out to me. I'll be glad to connect you. And Jason, thank you for joining us today. Next week, we're talking about, seriously, don't confuse looking big with getting customers. The post-Series A mistake that's burning startup runways. So lots of mystery around that. Actually, it shouldn't be mystery, but we'll talk a little bit about how you avoid doing that. And if you want to take action this week and book a discovery call with us, here's the way to do it. Join us at Calendly.com/Greater Gain Group /discovery call. And want to thank you for joining us. And again, thank you, Jason, for joining us. And everybody have a great week. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dan. Much appreciated.
Thanks. Talk soon.